So this is one of those situations where I don't know if I'm being totally unreasonable or if I'm walking into a complete disaster. I'm 24 years old, and I've recently started dating my ex-girlfriend's mom, who's 42. Yeah, I know, sounds pretty wild. I guess that's why I'm here, trying to figure out if I'm the asshole in this situation or if I'm just getting judged too harshly. For a little backstory, my ex-girlfriend and I dated for about 2 years. We broke up about a year ago. It wasn't a messy breakup at all. In fact, we ended things on good terms. It was one of those situations where we just grew apart, had different goals, and decided it wasn't working anymore. No screaming matches, no infidelity, nothing dramatic. We just kind of drifted away from each other. After the breakup, we didn't stay close friends or anything, but we didn't hate each other either. We would occasionally text or run into each other at mutual friends' gatherings. And it was all civil. No tension. Now, here's where things get complicated. While my ex and I were dating, I got to know her mom pretty well. Her mom, let's call her Lisa, was always really kind to me, and we actually hit it off from the start. We would talk whenever I went over to their place, and she would give me advice, listen to my problems. And we just generally clicked. It wasn't anything weird at the time. It was more of a she's older, she's wise, and I appreciate her perspective kind of thing. After the breakup, I didn't expect to stay in touch with Lisa, but we kind of did. She reached out a few times just to check in, see how I was doing, and we kept a casual friendship. It wasn't like we were hanging out all the time, but we would grab a coffee here and there or chat if we ran into each other in town. It was innocent, at least for a while. But a few months ago, things started to shift. Our conversations became a little deeper, a little more personal. I started to see her not just as my ex's mom, but as Lisa, the person I enjoyed talking to and spending time with. I realized that I was developing feelings for her, and from what I could tell, she was feeling the same. It wasn't like either of us planned this. It just happened, you know? So, about 2 months ago, we decided to take the leap and start dating. And here we are. The thing is, my ex doesn't know about this yet. I haven't had the guts to tell her. And honestly, I'm dreading that conversation. I can only imagine how awkward it's going to be. But I also feel like it's not really her business, right? We're not together anymore, and she's moved on. So, why should it matter who I'm dating now? Still, I can't shake the feeling that this is going to blow up in my face. On top of that, my mom is totally against the whole thing. She's made it very clear that she doesn't approve. Mostly because of the age difference and the fact that Lisa is my ex-girlfriend's mom. She thinks it's inappropriate and just plain wrong. Every time we talk about it, she tells me I'm being irresponsible and that I need to break things off before it gets too messy. She's also worried about what other people will think, which I get. But at the same time, it's my life, you know? My dad, on the other hand, doesn't care as much. He's not thrilled about it, but he's not totally against it, either. He's just more practical about it. He's told me that if I don't see this going anywhere long-term, I should be careful because it could get complicated down the line. He's not wrong, but I don't think I'm getting in too deep, at least, not yet. To be clear, I don't see this relationship leading to marriage or anything like that. I'm not looking for something serious right now, and neither is Lisa. We're just having fun, enjoying each other's company. I know that sounds casual, but that's really where we are. We both know this isn't some forever kind of thing. I guess that's what makes it more complicated in some ways, because if it's not serious, is it worth all the drama? But at the same time, why shouldn't I enjoy myself if I like being with her? The guilt, though, it's creeping in. I can't tell if it's because of how unconventional this whole thing is or if it's because I'm worried about hurting people, particularly my ex. I don't want her to feel betrayed or think that I was eyeing her mom while we were together. That's definitely not the case. But there's no denying that this is going to be a tough pill for her to swallow. And then there's Lisa. She's fully aware of the potential fallout. But she's willing to ride this out for now. She's a grown woman, after all, and she can make her own decisions. I just wonder if we're being reckless. Another layer to all of this is the fact that Lisa has a bit of a history. She got pregnant with my ex when she was really young. Like, barely out of high school. She's been through a lot. And I think part of why we connect is that she's lived such a different life than most people my age. She's had to grow up fast. And she's got this strength and independence that I really admire. It's easy to see why I fell for her. But I know that doesn't necessarily make things right. I'm still dating my ex's mom. And that's not something people just accept with open arms. I've also been thinking about how this might affect my future relationships. What if I meet someone else down the road, and they find out about this? Am I going to have to explain myself every time? Or worse, what if this somehow defines me in people's eyes? It's not like I'm dating Lisa just to prove a point or to rebel against societal norms. But I can't help but wonder if people will see it that way. It's a weird situation, no doubt. And I'm not sure if I'm overthinking it or if this is just what happens when you get involved in something messy. As for Lisa, she's not pushing for anything serious, which is a relief. She's content with where things are. And we're both on the same page about keeping it light. But there's still a sense of uncertainty hovering over us. How long can we keep this up before something gives? What happens if my ex finds out and confronts us? I don't want to hurt her, but at the same time, I can't ignore the fact that I'm happy with Lisa right now. Feels selfish. But is it really wrong to want to enjoy the moment? Every time I see my ex around town or at a mutual friend's party, I wonder if she can tell, if she's noticed something off, or if she's heard whispers from someone who might have seen Lisa and me together. Small town gossip can spread fast. And the last thing I want is for her to find out from someone else. But how do you even begin to explain something like this? I know that at some point, this relationship is going to end. Whether it's because things get too complicated, or because Lisa and I both realize it's time to move on. I'm aware that this isn't forever. But until then, I'm stuck in this limbo, trying to balance my feelings with the reality of what I'm doing. My mom's disapproval is hanging over me, and every time we talk, she drops hints that I need to cut it off. She thinks I'm being immature and that I'm just chasing something that's ultimately going to blow up in my face. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am being selfish and reckless. But I don't think I'm ready to end things just yet. I've thought about ending it, though. There are moments when I think it might be the best move for everyone involved. It would certainly make things easier, and I wouldn't have to keep worrying about who's going to find out next. But then I think about how much I enjoy spending time with Lisa, how much fun we're having, and I push those thoughts aside. I know it's short-sighted, but for now, I just want to enjoy it while it lasts. At the end of the day, I don't know if I'm the asshole or not. Part of me feels like I am, especially when I see how much this is bothering my mom. But another part of me feels like I should be allowed to live my life and make my own choices, even if they're not the most conventional. Maybe I'm being naive, thinking this can stay casual and not blow up in my face. But for now, I'm just trying to figure it all out.
I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. You hear stories, read posts online, and think it's all distant drama until it lands right in your lap. My wife's best friend, someone we've known for years, cheated on her husband. It happened about 6 times. From what I gathered, over the course of a few months. Then it stopped, or at least that's what my wife told me. The guy she cheated with is now stalking her and blackmailing her, threatening to tell her husband unless she does what he wants. I've kept quiet so far. My wife and I have taken the "not our business" approach to the whole thing. It was easy. At first, we don't want to meddle in other people's relationships. I mean, everyone has their issues, right? Plus, who are we to say what should happen in someone else's marriage? We're just outsiders looking in. But this situation has taken a turn for the worse. And now it feels like my silence is becoming complicity. Last week, things escalated. My wife and her best friend were out for a walk, just enjoying the day, when this guy, let's call him Tom, pulls up in his truck. Apparently, Tom had been tracking her, following her every move. He called her out, saying, "You said you were going to the gym." I can only imagine how that must have felt. It wasn't just a private affair anymore, it was bleeding out into the open, affecting other people's lives. The idea of this guy tracking my wife's best friend, Knowing her every move made me sick, but what really got me was the thought that he could just as easily target my wife. 2. If he's that obsessed, what's stopping him from pulling up on her next? From what I've heard, Tom's been demanding that she share her location with him, threatening to tell her husband if she doesn't comply. He's got her trapped. She cheated, and now she's stuck with a man who's holding that secret over her head. She's not going to come clean to her husband, that much is clear. And honestly, she doesn't seem like she's going to be able to shake this guy off. He's got too much control over her now. That's where the moral dilemma kicks in for me. The husband, let's call him Greg, has no idea any of this is going on. To him, everything's fine. He goes about his life, takes care of their 13-year-old son, and trusts his wife. Meanwhile, there's this storm brewing right over his head, and he has no clue. The weight of knowing all of this is starting to press down on me. It's not just about the cheating anymore, it's about the fact that this guy, Tom, is clearly unhinged. He's stalking her, controlling her movements, and blackmailing her. How long before this blows up? How long before Greg gets caught in the crossfire? I've been going over it again and again in my mind. Should I tell Greg? Am I the asshole if I do? My wife has made it clear that she doesn't think it's our business to get involved. She's loyal to her best friend. And I get that, but there's a part of me that feels like staying silent is the same as endorsing the lie. Greg deserves to know, doesn't he? If this were happening to me, if my wife were cheating and being blackmailed, I'd want someone to tell me. I'd want the truth, no matter how ugly it is. But then again, what if telling Greg makes things worse? They have a 13-year-old son. After all, what happens to him if this whole thing comes crashing down? Greg and his wife could split up, and that kid would be caught in the middle. I keep thinking about him. He's at that age where everything is already confusing. And this could ruin him. I can't imagine what it would be like to have your family torn apart like that. But on the flip side, is it fair to keep pretending everything's fine? Is it fair to let this lie continue, knowing that there's a stalker in the mix? I guess the real question is, where do my loyalties lie? Is it with my wife and her best friend, keeping their secrets because it's the easy thing to do? Or is it with Greg, the guy who has no idea what's going on behind his back? Every time I try to make a decision, I hit a wall. I'm torn between protecting someone's marriage and exposing a truth that could destroy everything. But how long can you hide the truth before it finds its way out? Anyway, there's also the fact that this guy, Tom, is getting bolder. He's already pulled up on my wife's best friend while she was out with my wife. How long before he starts showing up at their house? How long before this turns into something worse? Tom doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's just going to walk away quietly. He's got a hold over her now, and he's not letting go. That's what scares me. What if this escalates into violence? What if something happens to Greg, their son, or even my wife? The more I think about it, the more I realize that this situation is a ticking time bomb. Every time I see Greg, I feel this weight on my chest. He's a good guy, works hard, takes care of his family, and has no idea his wife has been lying to him. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the bad guy for keeping this secret. But then I think about what could happen if I tell him. And I'm paralyzed by the consequences. It's not a black and white situation. There's no easy answer here. If I go to Greg and tell him everything, I'm blowing up a marriage. There's no question about that. But if I don't, I'm letting this toxic situation continue. Tom's still out there, controlling my wife's best friend. And who knows what his next move will be. Every day, I feel more and more like this isn't just a personal issue anymore. It's something that could spiral out of control if left unchecked. I've thought about talking to my wife's best friend, trying to convince her to come clean. But what would that accomplish? She's already made her decision. She's going to try to ride this out and hope it goes away. The problem is, it's not going away. This guy, Tom, is in too deep now. And she's stuck in his web. She probably thinks she can handle it. But from where I'm standing, she's just digging herself a deeper hole. At this point, I feel like I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. If I tell Greg, I'm betraying my wife's trust and potentially destroying a family. If I don't, I'm complicit in covering up a lie that's getting more dangerous by the day. Either way, someone's getting hurt. The question is, who? I keep playing out different scenarios in my head. What if I tell Greg, and he confronts his wife? Maybe they'll work it out. Maybe they'll get through it and come out stronger. Or maybe Greg will lose it, and things will get ugly. I can't predict how he'll react. But I know it's going to be bad. There's no way to sugarcoat what's happening here. Cheating is one thing, but being blackmailed by a stalker? That's a whole other level of messed up. Then there's the possibility that Greg already knows. Or at least suspects. People aren't as oblivious as we think they are. Maybe he's turned a blind eye because he doesn't want to face the truth. Maybe he's just waiting for someone to give him a reason to act. If that's the case, am I really doing him a favor by staying quiet? It's been weeks now, and I still haven't made a decision. Every time I think I've figured out what to do, something pulls me back. My wife, for one, has made it clear that she doesn't want me to get involved. She thinks it's best if we stay out of it and let her best friend handle her own mess. But the problem is, her best friend isn't handling it. She's drowning, and I can see it. The only person who doesn't see it is Greg. I guess that's what it comes down to. Greg is in the dark. And the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get for him. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he deserves to know what's happening in his own marriage. I just don't know if I'm the one who should be telling him. How do you decide when to step in and when to step back? How do you weigh the consequences of telling the truth against the cost of keeping a secret? At the end of the day, I just want to do the right thing. I just don't know what that is anymore.